Hello, welcome to the class on tone of the passage. What is meant by tone of the passage? Tone of the passage implies the kind of words that the author uses to express himself. Let's go behind the logic of tone of the passage. Now understand, when a comprehension or an article is written in a fictitious manner or an opinion, the author is bound to take sides, right? When you're writing about something, you would either take support of it, you would either oppose it, or you would be neutral about it. Now, how do an author does this? Is he does this by using certain words that helps us to find out the tone of the passage. If you closely observe, the tones can largely be divided into the following three buckets. One is positive, the second one is negative, and the third one is neutral. The words itself could actually help you to find out what they mean. A positive tone is when an author is supportive of the central idea. A neutral is when an author does not take any sides during the discussion. And a negative is when an author is against the central idea. Remember, I have continuously been using the word central idea because an author is expected to revolve around that only. Remember the first class that we had on main idea? That main idea is something which an author keeps on talking about during the whole course of the comprehension. A couple of very important pointers. This is where a lot of people get these kind of questions wrong. Remember to not to carry your personal biases while finding out the tone of the passage. An example could be, suppose there is a passage on dowry system and an author is supporting it. An author is very well free to do it. But what you would do is you would start criticizing the author of why is he using words to support dowry system. Now remember, you have to answer according to the author's perspective and not yours. That means what you would end up doing is you would end up building a parallel comprehension where you are criticizing dowry system. But the questions are based on author's perspective. So this will start clashing with the author's perspective, which will land you in a probability of getting the answer wrong. So do not do it. Now, how do you go out finding the tone of the passage? Try to find out if the passage is objective or subjective. Once it is done, if the passage is subjective, try to find out the central idea. Once you're done with this, critically examine the author's treatment of the central idea. How do you do this? Step 3, find out the adjectives or adverbs that the author uses to elaborate central idea. Now in this, certain examples could be the system is good for the society. That means when an author is saying that the system is good, that means the author is supportive of the central idea. The step is much needed for the improvement. When you say step is being defined by much needed, that means the author is critical of the current steps and is saying that these are the steps which are needed. Now what do you do if you do not know the meaning of the word given in the options? The first thing, it is always advisable to expose yourself to the variety of tones that banking exams could ask you for. You can and should build your vocabulary and practice a lot of mocks. Even when if you end up getting a word which you do not have any idea about, remember there is always a connotation attached to a word. For example, a word that starts with day more often ends up in a negative implication. The words like derogatory, defamatory. Now let's take an example on this. If the author is positive, you probably can get that feel during the reading of the RC, and the options are as follows: derogatory, derisory, neutral and appreciative. Now I very well know the meaning of the words in option number C and D, but suppose I do not know meaning of the words in option number A and B. Now with the help of the root word and the knowledge DE, it always carries a negative connotation. I can eliminate derogatory and derisory. Now I'm left with option number C and option number D. Neutral is a word that I'm very well clear of the meaning. So what option I'm left with? I'm only and only left with option number D, which becomes my answer. Essential pointers. In case of certain RCs, it might happen that the author is supportive in 2 paragraphs and negative in the rest of the 3 paragraphs. What is the overall tone of the RC? This happens a lot of times and confuses a lot of students. Now, what they do is they do an overall 2 minus 3 is equal to minus 1 overall negative tone. Why I'm doing this? I assume that we have been supportive in 2 paragraphs, negative in 3. So essentially the paragraph should end up being minus 1 overall negative tone. This is not maths. I've been continuously telling you across all the classes, English is not maths. Remember the basic rule that tone is the author's treatment of the central idea. Despite the above condition, the tone of the RC can still be positive. How can that happen? Suppose the author in the 2 paragraphs where he is supportive in the RC uses strong words like best, assiduous. Assiduous means hardworking. And in the 3 paragraphs where he is negative, he uses mild words like bad and not good. So see, when he is being very positive, he is being very positive. But when he is being negative, he is not being that negative. That means if you go by the treatment of the author towards a central idea, a highly positive support against a mild negative, it would essentially end up being partially positive. Remember here that the tone depends on the degree of the words that the author uses and not the number of times it has been used. Pointer 2. Suppose if I say Sachin is a good batsman, I asked you the tone of the passage whether it would be eulogistic or praising. The second statement, Sachin is the best batsman, I again ask you the same question. See the difference over here. I have drastically increased the intensity of the word from statement number 1 to statement number 2. Right from saying that Sachin is a good batsman to saying Sachin is the best batsman. If you closely see, the author is supportive of Sachin in both the sentences, but he's varied the degree a lot. This concept is particularly useful when the options are positive, slightly positive, negative or slightly negative. When I say good batsman, I am just praising him. When I say he is the best batsman, I am being eulogistic. Eulogistic means high praise. Other confusing choices that have been regularly part of banking examinations are, and I would advise you to go back and do a certain kind of homework to find out the meaning of these words. There has been a lot of confusion between satire and sarcasm. The same goes with conjecture versus hypothesis. Choices that have words like irony, oxymoron, hyperbole, euphemism. These are the figures of speech and you can find out easily the meaning of these words. And words like descriptive versus analytical versus